Rare, a British studio founded by Tim and Chris Stamper, transformed from an NES developer into a premier Nintendo partner through the creation of Donkey Kong Country in 1994. The project originated when Rare invested heavily in silicon graphics workstations to render 3D models, initially intending to use this technology for the upcoming N64. However, Nintendo America, seeking to compete with Sega's graphical superior Aladdin, recognized the potential of Rare's 2D to 3D sprite compression technique. After Nintendo's executives viewed the tech demo called Brute Force, they commissioned Rare to reboot the dominant Donkey Kong franchise for the SNES. So, the development team was assembled by Rare, including lead designer Greg Miles, who worked on it for 18 months to create the game, which was codenamed Country after Rare's location in Twycross, England. The studio chose Donkey Kong because the character had less established universe than Mario, allowing Rare greater creative freedom to introduce new characters like Diddy Kong and Kremlings. The game was released in November 1994 to critical acclaim for its groundbreaking pre-rendered visuals and challenging gameplay, becoming the third best-selling SNES game. It sold 9.3 million copies. This is a massive commercial success, leading to Nintendo purchasing a large majority stake in Rare, cementing its status as the leading second-party developer for the next decade. David Wise is a British video game music composer and musician. He was a composer at Rare from 1985 to 2009, and he was also the company's sole musician until 1994. He gained a dedicated following for his work on various games, including Nintendo's Donkey Kong Country series. Wise is also known for his atmospheric style of music, mixing natural environmental sounds with prominent melodic and percussive accompaniment sounds. Career and influences. David Wise has said that he had a wide range of musical influences across the board. The first instrument he learned to play was the piano before later learning the trumpet, and was also learning to play the drums during adolescence. He played in a few bands during his youth and he was active in a band of 2004. His career at Rare began when he happened to meet his two founders. As he explained in response to a question posted on its company website, quotation here, "I was working in a music shop demonstrating Yamaha CX-5 music computer to a couple of people, Tim and Chris Stamper, basically the two founders. I'd written to program for the music for the demonstration material. They'd offered me the job." While working at Rare, David Wise gained attention and acclaim for his work on Donkey Kong Country series on Nintendo's console, the Super Nintendo. In addition to the percussive and ambient jungle influences that serve as a thematic undercurrent for much of the series, the games feature a wide range of different musical styles that are relatively of the various arenas, environments they appear in. In January 1996 issue of Electronic Gaming Monthly, Wise stated that his traveling experiences largely shaped the sound and mood for each Donkey Kong soundtrack, further saying in the way that the music for Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest was composed during what he has called his experimental Paris phrase. In a book Playing with Superpower, some influences for the music of Donkey Kong Country were mentioned, specifically Koji Kondo's work on the Super Mario and the Legend of Zelda series. Also, the Super Nintendo, or Super SNES if you will, there was a game made called Plonk, composed by Tim Foley and Jeff Fullen, and synthesized film scores and rock dance music from the early 1980s. He was composed of the soundtrack for the Game Boy Advance port of Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. Time to talk about Donkey Kong on the VHS. Back in the day, the Donkey Kong Country Exposed VHS tape was a promotional tool sent by Nintendo of America to subscribers of Nintendo Power magazine in October 1994. It was designed to build a massive hype for the upcoming Donkey Kong Country game for the Super Nintendo, which was released in 1994 in November. The video was hosted by comedian Josh Wolf, takes views behind the scenes at Nintendo's America's headquarters in Washington State, the Treehouse. It features interviews with game testers, developer Tim Stamper from Rare, and also showcases gameplay tips and footage. The marketing strategy. It was part of a massive 16 million marketing blitzberg to promote the Super Nintendo, which was facing competition from Sega's new consoles, the 32X Mega CD, and the upcoming 32-bit era PlayStation/Saturn. The tapes highlight of the revolutionary 3D rendered graphics which were created using the same CGI workstations used for Jurassic Park. Time for the 90s aesthetics, dude! Surfer time. Joke over. The tape is also known for its high energy, radical 90s style, often featuring strange editing, loud music, and Donkey Kong Country themed cardboard mailer. The significance was it was rare. Direct-to-consumer peek into video game development before the internet was common these days. Many children of the 90s fondly remember this as a key moment of the pre-release hype. Did you know this VHS had secret and cameos? It's really awesome. It contained a secret bonus at the end, which was a quick sneak peek of the upcoming Killer Instinct game running on the Ultra 64, which also became the Nintendo 64 you know today. This also reminds me of the Mega CD promotional for their upcoming games, especially with the console and the game montages as well, and that awesome music with the guitarist. Ow! Who can forget that? What a great blast to the past.
Look everyone, DK is going bananas.
Here are the amazing facts about this excellent game. Original concept, the game began as a boxing demo for Rare before evolving into a platformer, and it was initially intended for the N64 before being adapted for the SNES. Character origins. Cranky Kong is actually the original Donkey Kong from the 1980s arcade games, making him the main DK his grandson. Additionally, DK was originally going to be named Dinky Kong or Donkey Kong Jr., but Nintendo requested a new character to avoid confusion and legal issues with existing toys. Design influences. The iconic red tie was added by Rare, while the rest of the DK's design was based on a sketch by Shigeru Miyamoto. The developers visited Twycross Zoo to study gorillas, but found them too slow, based DK's movements actually on horses instead. Music and difficulty. The famous underwater track Aquatic Ambience took the composer David Wise 5 weeks to make, because it pushed the SNES audio to its limits. Contrary to the typical trends of the time, the Japanese version of the game was actually easier, featuring more extra lives and fewer enemies. Cancel content. Early pitches included a storyline titled Donkey Kong vs Super Wario, where Wario turns into Mario to stone. The Kremlings were also originally going to be intended for a cancelled game called Johnny Blastoff in the Kremlin Armada, before being reused here. How interesting. Donkey Kong Land, a 1995 side-scrolling platform game developed by Rare and published by Nintendo for the Game Boy. Also known in Japan as Super Donkey Kong GB, it serves a handheld companion to the SNES hit Donkey Kong Country, considering its gameplay into the 30 unique levels where players control Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong to recover their stolen banana hoard from King K. Rool. This game was released in North America on June 26, 1995, and it was notably for its banana yellow cartridge and optimization for the Super Game Boy peripheral, which adds color palettes and jungle theme border. It sold 3.91 million copies, earning a critical acclaim for its successful translating the SNES experience to an 8-bit hardware, and it was ready to re-release on Nintendo 3DS Virtual Console in 2014 and also Nintendo Switch in 2024. The Game Boy Color version is a 2000 port of the original 1994 Super Nintendo Classic, developed by Rare and published by Nintendo. It was released in North America on November 4th, 2000, Europe on November 17, 2000, and in Japan on January 21st, 2001. This GBA version is largely faithful to the adaptation that features several key differences from the SNES original. Here we go. Visuals and audio. Due to the GBC's 8-bit hardware, graphics are scaled down and the color palette is more limited. Although it's still vibrant, the soundtrack is primarily lifted from the Donkey Kong Land series rather than the original SNES score. Gameplay adjustments. Only one Kong appears on the screen at a time, indicating a DK barrel icon when both are available. The two-player mode is removed and the starting cutscene with Cranky Kong is omitted. The new content. The game includes a redesigned level, an added level, and bonus modes featuring 2 mini-games accessible by the bonus menu. It also supports multiplayer by the Game Link cable and the Game Boy printer support. The GBA version is the final release game 2003 version of the 1994 classic on the SNES. Developed by Rare and published by Nintendo for the final time, this game was released in June 2003 in North America and in Europe December 2003 in Japan, serving as one of Nintendo's official SNES releases for the handheld. While the core gameplay remains faithful to the original, the GBA version introduced several new features and modifications, if you will. The new content, it adds an animated intro cutscene with DK attack time mode and 2 minigames, fishing and dance challenge with Candy Kong. Gameplay adjustments, the game features a redesigned user interface, swapped levels in some worlds, and enhanced boss battles with new mechanics. Technical changes to the accompaniment, smaller non-backlit screen, graphics were downsized and colours were brightened, resulting in less detailed backgrounds and sound compared to the SNES version, also similar to the GBC version I noticed. Features includes a save anywhere function as a scrapbook for collecting images and support for 2-player multiplayer via the link cable. This game sold 1.82 million copies worldwide and remains a popular entry for the GBA owners seeking a portable version of the platform classic. Donkey Kong Country is a 1997 animated TV program based on the video game Donkey Kong Country from Nintendo and Rare. Co-produced by Nirvana Limited and Medilab Studio LA. Season 1 and Hong Kong Animation Season 2 is in association with Wick Entertainment. With the participation of Teletoon for Season 1, it was produced in co-production with France 2, Canal Plus, and produced in isolation with Valar 4. The first TV series to be primarily animated using performance capture technology. Several elements of the series, such as Crystal Coconut, appeared in later Donkey Kong video games like Donkey Kong 64, itself released 3 years after the show began airing on television. The second season was produced by Taiwanese CG Studio CG, which featured an updated character models, silkier lighting, and keyframing as opposed to performance capture. It was first announced in May 1999. The plot of this cartoon show, taking place on Congo Bongo Island, it focused on Donkey Kong, the island's resident hero. Before the events of the series, he was chosen as the island's future ruler by the mythical artifact known as the Crystal Coconut, which is connected to the spiritual temple known as Enka Dinka Do. In the present, Donkey Kong must prove he deserves the role through his heroics and by guarding the Crystal Coconut. Alongside his allies and his friends, sidekick Diddy Kong and his mentor Cranky Kong, he must protect the Crystal Coconut from threats, most notably King K. Rool, who tries to steal it in order to rule Congo Bongo Island. Donkey Kong has to juggle his guardian duties with his social life and his relationship with Candy Kong. Each episode features 2 songs performed by the characters, and it was directed by Mike Fellows, developed by Jacques Goldstein and Philippe Pisbois. The theme music was made by Pure West. This show had crazy slapstick comedic timing. They had really weird lines, and I remember watching this at school with great fondness of the great animation, which for that time of the standards of the period of that sort of style, it was timeless. But obviously now in 2026 it looks absolutely super dated. In fact, this show reminds me of another great show I used to watch called Reboot, the CGI cartoon back in the day. It's very similar to this CGI techniques of animation. Thank you for watching the video, guys. We reached to the end. You know about the history of this great game franchise. I love Donkey Kong Country. In fact, I remember going back to my childhood, playing this at college as well, and mainly school years. It was so fun traversing through the levels in a different aspect of environments, and especially the accompanying music by David Wise, which is the most greatest music you can ever hear on the Super Nintendo hardware, is astounding, and he should be celebrated. Thank you very much, David Wise. And I'd also like to thank Chris and Tim Stamper from Rare for taking great initiatives and giving these awesome developers freedom to make the game and not be constricted and contrived by higher ups, because if it was constricted and controlled, it would not work for this game. And the fact it sold so many copies as the greatest video game ever made. And the next game that I will be praising is Tomb Raider 2.